you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die, and can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability?
So welcome. I'm delighted to meet you in person.
I know, because the last time we did this was via Skype on book 2, I think it was, of your, 4 books now.
Yes.
So I'll link those videos below in the description for this video of some past interviews. But for those coming straight into this and maybe not knowing what the story is, if you could just tell us the story of how this all unfolded for yourself to begin with.
Okay. 7.5 years ago, October of 2010, my mother passed away. I'd been taking care of her for 20 months. And when she passed away, I was with her, one of my daughters, and my sister. And at the moment of her last breath, I just felt a sensation that a part of me left with her and a part of her remained. Within me. I didn't know what that feeling was at the time, but it became clear to me as time went by what that, almost an exchange, I call an exchange of spiritual DNA, is what it felt like in retrospect. So it was 19 days later. I was on an airplane to New York, where I'm now living, New York City, to see 2 of my daughters. And I was looking out the plane window at that incredible expanse of clouds that we can be so enamored with when we're flying. And I asked a question in my mind of her. Mother, is there any distance for you? And I heard her answer me. I heard her, yes, within my mind, but it certainly sounded like it was audible as well. And people have asked me, well, is it in your head or is it audible? It feels like it's both. She has a beautiful Australian accent and it's unmistakable, you know. So there was her beautiful voice saying, well, not exactly like distance for you is. And she went on to give me a brief explanation of that. So then the conversation just continued. One of the most profound things she said in that 1.5-hour flight was, you are not alone. You are not even functioning as one being or one person. Nobody is, for you are a member of a team, a spiritual team as close to you as breathing. Now that is what permeates these 4 books, this concept that we are a representative of our team in essence, that everything that we're experiencing and learning is being filtered back to them. All our experiences are leveraged. They're able to use it, learn it, absorb it without having to physically come and experience every imaginable thing on earth. So because I'm a writer, I pulled out a piece of paper. I started writing down everything that she was saying. At one point she said, isn't this fun? This could be a book. And I went from more personal questions about her and where she was and how she was feeling, what she was doing, and questions about my life, my personal regrets in life, things of that nature. And then the themes became more universal, and I could feel that she was trying to explain universal principles to me.
So would you say, or could you say, this was channeled?
You know, if you want to say that as a soul and as a mind, I was being used by a being who is not physically on the earth to bring this information out, absolutely so. And actually, as the years went by, I developed more and more the ability to do what people call mediumship. And it's the same thing. It's that same information flow. It's an information flow from the expanded part of me to the expanded universe. So yes.
How did you discern that voice?
Well, it's interesting you ask that, because from a young age I had the ability, I had many experiences as a child, and some of them frightened me. I had a beautiful woman materialize from the ground up when I was 9 years old. And I called to my mother. She had just stepped out of my bedroom. I was in bed, just settled down, was not asleep. She had just put me to bed. And I said, "Mother, come in. There's a woman here." And she ran in, and I said, "Oh, I was uplifted." This is her report. "Oh, I was uplifted." This angelic being just was there. It was so beautiful. And those kinds of things kept continuing to happen in childhood. At 10, I was doing writing beautiful poetry through automatic writing. But I became nervous. She was very open, and my mother, and guided and protected and helped me through those experiences. She read and studied and learned what they were and was able to be a support to me. But nonetheless, especially when I went into my teens, I became nervous, frightened of it, kind of blocked it all out. So through the years, she would say to me, you ought to do that writing, that spiritual writing that you did as a child. And I'd say, no, I just don't feel, I never felt, I was a little nervous about all that. And I would say to her, well, you should write a book. You're going into your 80s. Write a book about your life. And she would say, no, I don't want to review my life. I said, not that kind of book. Every chapter could be about a different spiritual principle you have learned in your life. And she tried, but she said, I'm just too old. So when she came to me, I knew her voice. I trusted her voice. I was no longer afraid. I've never had a moment of being nervous or fearful of this channeling experience since it began. And book 1 came in with only her presence. And then, because I was open and trusting, the rest of the books expanded on all the concepts she gave me, but other teammates came in. Some who were scientific, some who were philosophical, different kinds of information, totally different from her voice.
So, one thing I wanted to ask you as well was just going back to when you felt that when mother passed, and your mother's name was Teddy. Crystal was her
real name.
Real name, yeah. So, okay, we'll call her Teddy. I thought that was your nickname, though.
Frankie.
Frankie, that's it. Sorry, yeah. Right, yes. So you felt when Teddy passed away, that part of Frankie left, and more of your mother came in?
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. But we had talked before. Was this a completely my soul Frankie's soul leaves and Teddy's soul comes in? And what I've understood from everything in these books, and it's really explored in depth, we have many aspects to our soul, just like we have many parts of the brain going. We know that. Different areas of the brain, okay? And the brain is making many, many things happen in the body at all times. So these many aspects of the soul are doing different things. And when we come into the body, and we don't come into the body, actually the body is inside the soul. The soul is a very vast entity surrounding the body moving and manipulating the body. But according to Book 4, we are not in our bodies. The body is inside the soul. So an aspect of the soul will join and use this body because that is the aspect that needed to get something particular accomplished or something particular learned or rendezvous with somebody else to activate their spiritual DNA and has a purpose. And at times, we use that aspect throughout our entire lives, but at other times, that aspect will exchange with a different aspect of our own soul. And with that new aspect, bring in the connections to other teammates. So I think what I experienced in that exchange was really a new part of my own being arrived that was more connected with her next phase of mission, because she is now able to do more on the other side than she actually was doing here.
So a new aspect of your soul that hadn't had human incarnation before.
It could have, or it
Right.
could have had incarnations in different dimensions. She says that the whole idea of reincarnation, that you literally come back to this earth over and over and over, is very limited. That our different aspects of our souls go to many different locations, many different dimensions, and that we really have one life. We just live it in many different places, and not to think of, I come here, I die, I come back, I die, I come back. That's too limiting.
So to get my head around that, for the truth of what Teddy's truth is, then do we have past lives then?
We do, and different aspects of us have been here before, and different teammates have been here before. And our teammates have filtered back to us their experience as if it were our own. So we're carrying the wisdom and the memories of many things that may have occurred here, not necessarily literally coming.
So it's like this: before we came here, maybe we've downloaded the teammates' version of a life that they've had.
Yeah.
For whatever reason,
Yeah.
we feel we need that experience.
Yeah.
And we can reference that in our records while here, but we haven't actually had that life.
We may not have had that life here. They may have had them, and we have absorbed their experience like they're absorbing ours. But another aspect of us may have come into a life as well and had other physical incarnations here on the earth. And the thing is, there's an aspect that has come into your body at this moment in time and is working through what you're striving to accomplish, but other parts of you are doing other things. And that's why they don't really miss us, because when they're on the other side, there's parts of us that are still on the other side.
Okay, that's just fascinating. We could just you could have written a book just on that subject.
Book 4 has a lot of it, but there are chapters in the other books that touch upon it.
But do you feel that you could have written whole books on
a chapter?
Just a life review, if that did exist?
Completely. What people have told me that read the books, and what I experience too, is that every chapter is a book. And it's so dense. The material is very dense. And I know that it is. And I know the reason it is because there's multiple teammates have contributed. So you get this complexity and density to it. There's a simplicity to it, actually. What I've just described is very simple in a way. But layers of information because of different kinds of teammates.
So could you tell when Mum was coming through and when Mum wasn't so present?
Yes. I will say that I have always felt her presence. Her hands are on the book, but she would bring others in to give information. Even the language changes, the style of writing changes in different chapters, because here is someone who's scientific, here is someone who's got a medical background, or a medical expertise, if you will. Some sound very, the writing reminds me more of something you would read in Buddhism. So,
It's incredible. So let's just go back here a little bit as well, because there's so much we cannot cover here, and I'd love to cover. So when, before Teddy passed then, there was some resistance for her to write her own book of her own truth that she had discovered on her journey. And I think before she crossed over as well, there was a few wishes on behalf of one of the family members. I think it was your daughter that was trying to get pregnant at the time, and she asked Teddy, when you go to heaven, would you be able to help me?
yes, you remember this part.
To get pregnant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because she was having troubles getting pregnant.
Yeah,
wasn't she?
one of my daughters wanted to be pregnant, had taken a while, and she went to my mother a couple of weeks before she passed, and she said, Nana, when you go to heaven, would you ask the angels to send me a baby? And she said, and I remember clearly, she patted her face, she always patted people's faces. And she said, I think I can help you with that, dear. That was her answer. And when my daughter spoke at her memorial just a few weeks after she passed, she didn't know it, but she was pregnant. And then she was given the due date of my mother's birthday as the date the baby would be born, which was later revised. She was born a little later. And it was when I was on the plane to go visit that daughter, and I said, I just got to wrap my arms around you. I'm so excited you're pregnant, that this began. And I've become aware that sometimes when an entity is coming in, there's a completion of like a triangle of power, a triangle of, like a circuit was completed, and I feel like this child coming in was part of completing that circuit.
Yes, it's incredible that, isn't it, when you can see it from that perspective. Now, you mentioned as well
this
that
book
Mother...
should be up here.
Absolutely.
I didn't do that.
You mentioned that Mother was also, in your early years, into subjects probably of channeling as well. I think she must have touched up or found Edgar Casey at one point.
She had been raised very strict Catholic, and I was in the Catholic Church, and when I was about 5 or 6, she was just searching. She was in her 30s. She felt there was a broader interpretation than what she had grown up with. And she also knew that I was already showing signs of great sensitivity and writing poetry at a young age. And she wanted to give me something more, she said. She didn't want to have me experience only that. So she kind of went on this search, and she would take me with her, by the hand. We'd go to the Unitarian Church, and she went to, I didn't really know what it was, I was very young, but it did open my mind. Even being part of the Unitarian Church for years opened our minds, because we met many kinds of people who were looking at life from different perspectives. So, yes, she had come across Edgar Casey. It was astounding to her. She read, somebody gave, in her search, the most pivotal thing for her is somebody gave her a book called the Betty Book. Are you familiar with Edward White and Betty White?
No.
And, oh yes, well, you need to be. They were a couple in the 1930s and 40s he was a writer, and they were just leading a very exploratory life. They traveled a lot, but you know what life was like back then. The woman had a very traditional role, and somebody introduced her to the Ouija board, which she was horrified by because she was a strict Christian and didn't. But through a series of experiences, she became the most incredible channeler with her husband by her side. And these books are just phenomenal. They're written in, like I said, in the 30s and 40s, and they're just phenomenal. And that first book, called the Betty Book, opened up her eyes to something else. And then from then on, she explored many things, and took me along. And I was aware as much as a child could be, of these kinds of things. But part of the reason she did it was because I showed evidence of being that kind of a child. And it made her want to know, what is that? Who is this child is seeing this angelic form appear before her? And I told her that somebody helped me write the poems. So she wanted to know what that really was.
When you look back now at those poems, do you think it was just the greater part of yourself coming through?
No, I had a contact. He told me his name. And I loved him so much as a child. And I would have dreams. You know, he'd come and take me out the window like Peter Pan.
Who was he?
Peter Young. I've never said his name publicly. Peter Young. And he continues to be on my team. So he, as a child, he was a child at that time. And he was a contact for me. And when I would do automatic writing, and then at a young age, I think I was 10, this group would meet and they would blindfold me and I would do automatic writing for the group. And they would ask questions and I would receive answers from Peter Young through this writing. And only, you know, my mother didn't take very good care of it. Only one sample remained and I've put a copy of it in the book.
Which book?
I think it's in all the books. I think I put it somewhere in there. A picture of me when I was, yeah, that one's not a very clear one. I should do better than that.
So is it the same transcribes of...
I can read the little message for you. It might be of interest.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And how old would you have been at the time? Ah, okay, quite young then, yeah.
I was 10.
Yeah.
And the writing is here. You can see it.
Yeah.
And what it says is, perhaps as a person wanders through a corridor of thought, he shall prove himself as an animal, with a being only as a halo can imagine. And another statement on the automatic writing, perfectness. Once a healer will touch you and create a world apart from your physical contents, to cleanse your fullness from a content undesirable. Contact us often and make it a love to create a new light for you that is meaningful. So this is a 10-year-old child writing with the blindfold off, and many other things. Messages, personal messages for people in that group.
Pretty incredible. Okay, and I mean, you know, it's quite understandable that when you got to your late teens, you know, early 20s, life took you in a completely different direction.
Well, the teens did.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mother discovered a church actually called the Universal Church of Ontology. Ontology meaning the science of all being. And it was structured to, with a lot of the Christian symbolism of an altar and candles and flowers and pews, and it appeared, it was very, very physically beautiful place. Very small group. And but they taught metaphysical principles. They taught Christian mysticism, the mystical meaning behind the Christian teachings, not so literal. And she took me there at 12. And so I went through kind of a turbulent teenage time. And then at 22, I became an ordained minister in the Universal Church of Ontology. And I stayed there till I was 26. And then I left. My mother had already left. I left. It had become, well, it just wasn't right for me anymore. So then I went on into my married life and my children and my grandchildren. And my mother and I always had this awareness and this love of this truth, but we never belonged to any group, and we never were created any material of any kind, you know, together until this occurred.
So when Mother crossed over, that day when Mother crossed over, she would have been in a good place in one's perspective, in the sense that she had her truth. To her, she was crossing over, going back home.
She was going back home.
Did that help her a lot in that process?
She was very peaceful, and I think her illness had left her sort of mentally somewhat confused at the end, and I don't think
that was cancer.
Yes, it was lung cancer. She did not smoke, but she had lung cancer, and it did move into the brain. So because of that, she wasn't real clear sometimes on what was going on. She was very peaceful and felt very loved. I remember she looked at me and she said, I don't know who you are, but I know I love you. That's how she was. That's the state of mind she was in. And so...
It's been difficult for you.
Oh, it was,
no
unbearably
matter what
painful.
spiritual practices
yes.
you've got, that's one thing I just want to say. It never takes the pain away, being having your own truth. I mean, how could it? You've got to...
The fact is, our bodies miss their bodies. We want to hear their voice and touch their hands. I have an experience of her out of her body, and that really never fully leaves me. It isn't like it was 7 years ago when this information came through, and it lasted about 1.5 years, this communication.
For all these books?
Yes.
Is she still present now, if you called
Yes,
upon her?
she comes in and out.
Is she here now?
Oh yes, she's always here at these times, and I always wear something of hers. She's always...
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And that's why I have her picture always present when I do these things, because she says, don't take it all too seriously. And that's why I have this laughing picture up of her, because that is important to her.
Isn't that an important point to make? We take spirituality and all this ascension stuff so seriously that we almost miss out on having the human experience.
Yes. It's not necessary. That is not the route. I mean, we are not here to escape being here. We are here to bring the light, to share the light, to find the joy, because right next to the horrors of this world is the most wonderful, beautiful joy. It's always, we're here with the saints are next to the Hitlers. And we're all here together. It's like a smorgasbord always available to us. And we're here to be here and bring the light. We're here to merge everything.
It's like being on a bridge and merging the human experience with this spiritual experience. But even using the word spiritual is a barrier to what it is.
Every word is a barrier. Every word is a limitation. Every bit of language is a limitation. It's all we have, but, it does limit.
So, how has this helped to heal you? Because obviously I never knew you prior to the work.
Yes. I was very different before this experience. So I'll list all my faults.
Oh no, don't, because I'll join you as well.
I had trouble with a very furious outburst of anger off and on throughout my life, that completely vanished, has never returned, and I have not felt, knock on wood, anything of that nature since this experience. I would drink too much wine or beer at times. I have no issue with alcohol whatsoever. Well, we could go on and on, but I'm a very, very different person. I remember after she died, I went to my sister a few days after she died, and I said, you know what? I'm completely different. I feel like all the frankiness has gone away. Now, what I meant by frankiness was just the pettiness or the jealousy or the anger, those kinds of things had gone away. And she said, well, this isn't good. You need to go see a counselor if you feel like your Frankie has gone away. And I said, no, it's really very good. I felt I felt like a part of me had gone and seen this big picture and all this silly stuff that I had been immersed in off and on. I'm not saying I would 24/7 was angry or anything like that, but these kinds of emotional
depression.
Just the ups and downs of the emotional life, and I had some real downs. They stopped. They stopped.
So someone that's been into this subject a lot then, not just channeling, but, working on themselves, some of these people say, I don't deny my depression, I make sure I go through it and see it through.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but why does it keep surfacing all the time? I mean, to me, it's something's out of alignment, something's not quite right. They would say different, of course, they would say, it's just, that's denial, but... do you know what I mean? Because with what you've got, you went through something so special in one way, but we can all have what you've got, though, can't we?
I don't know how to answer that question,
Yeah, and I don't want to put it on a pedestal, like, oh, you went through something so special.
Yeah.
That's not what this documentary is
Yeah,
about. This
no.
is about saying to everyone, you can do this too. The power is within you.
Yes. Where the power really is. If we consider, if we experience ourselves as an individual to the point that some people do, then we're really closing ourselves off from this incredible source of power. I mean, there's 7 billion people on the planet. There's countless planets and dimensions in our universe. I mean, we've seen the pictures and our mind cannot even begin to fathom what the universe consists of. So do you really think that your small little self, as tall as you are, really has, you are so tiny. I'm not just saying you, we are all so tiny, but if you imagine that out of us comes this cord and it's connected to this incredible vast universe, that is where all the wisdom and the power that's flowing through us, because we are a body in a soul. We're not a soul stuck inside our body. That's very limiting. And we move through this body. That's where the power comes. And so, yes, it's there for everyone. It's when we consider ourselves, think of ourselves as cut off, separate, individual, and we close out that we are part of a team, that we're part of each other. Our souls are connected. If we could see them right now, it would be incredible. They're having a party together. So that's where our awareness and this is why it's available to everyone. Not because you as an individual are going to do this amazing thing. No, it's because you are not just you anymore.
On my journey of interviewing so many channelers, right, you get to really soon realize that everyone's got a different truth. So you could be on a stage right now, maybe with me, right, we'll just say that, and there's other people around you, not just channelers, but other seekers of their own truth, and they've all got a different take on it, especially the entities coming through the channelers. So this is Mother's truth and her team's truth at the level at where they're at.
Absolutely. My mother used to say, even in life, this is my truth at this time.
Did she? Wow. That says it all, doesn't it?
Yes. She was a spiritual teacher all her life. I mean, you could talk to a number of people who knew her and the conversations they had of, I can't say exactly these kind of concepts, because these are concepts that many of them that I had never heard before. Truly, I had never heard, and she certainly had never said. But she was the embodiment of forgiveness, compassion. She was the embodiment in her physical life of seeking, very interested in ETs, very interested in other dimensions. She had a very brilliant, open mind, and she knew that we are here to apply these principles that we learn about to practical life. She's a very practical person, and she put them into practice with everyone.
Well, my next kind of question would definitely be about the books, because these books are such amazing material in there. And what did Teddy say about why we're here, first of all? Why have this experience?
Yes. Oh gosh, I feel like, I'm a person talking about the books, just like anybody else. If I could only read her answers to some of those.
How has the family received the books and what you're doing with Mother?
Well, because they knew her and they knew her life and her life philosophy, which did include living a life of compassion, the belief in reincarnation and things of that nature. Now her explanation of reincarnation is much vaster than what she had when she was physically here. But because they grew up with her and saw that she was compassion in action, she was putting into practice the things that she preached, they're very comfortable with the idea that she could do this. Now, when it first occurred, I didn't tell everyone. I didn't know if it was something personal I was having for that day, but when it went on for weeks and weeks and months, I realized it was producing books, and it was not just something I had experienced. It was for everyone. So I began to tell people in the family. I have 4 daughters. My sister, my cousin, Lisa, was one of the first people I ever spoke to about it. She was completely enthralled and aware and had no trouble believing in any of it. They have told me, now this was 7 years ago, and they're in their 30s now, so some of them were in their 20s. It was, they were young, and one of them was a teenager, so it was hard at first. Some of them have told me now that at first they thought, was I having some kind of breakdown? Was I okay? But they listened to me, and they were respectful. And then when they started reading the material, because first the first book was finished in 3 weeks, and I just made photocopies, put it in a white folder, and gave it to people. That's what I did. When I got up to hundreds of those, I started, people could order them. But when they started reading the material, they really became aware, this sounds just like Nana. They knew it wasn't my writing, it wasn't my style, and they also were reading things that none of us had ever thought of or talked about. Now my eldest daughter grew up partly in the ontology church, Wendy, so she was completely on board, and it made sense to her with no problem. But the younger girls were a little unsure, and now they're in their 30s. One of them in particular is reading the books a lot and constantly in contact with me. What does this mean? I can't believe this. This is fantastic. She's like 36 now, you see. So in answer to your question, my family is totally supportive and understanding.
So my question was, what was Ted's understanding now on why we have the human experience?
I think the answer to that is given in little fragments throughout the different books. For example, in this book 3, in the chapter called The Collective, she says, everything you're doing physically is contributing to the development of the human species upon the earth. Everything you're doing mentally is contributing to the body of knowledge for the human race. Everything you're doing emotionally is contributing to the emotional constitution of humanity. And in keeping with the law of correspondence, as above, so below, everything you are doing spiritually is contributing to the spiritual expansion of collective consciousness. So we are here in another chapter to bring the light. The number one mission of every spiritual team and the members who enter a human body is this, to bring the light. You are there to bring the light as it presents itself to you. Bring the light into the darkness as it presents itself to you, because darkness is different for each of us. And this darkness is always relative. She says in book 1 that the earth is for the purpose of watching spiritual principles unfold in slow motion time, that this is a slow motion dimension. It's like electricity. You can stare all day at that light turning on and off, but you cannot see what is happening to form that spark. But if you slow it down in slow motion or draw a diagram, you can understand it. And in the same way, we're in this slow motion dimension, so we can see cause and effect along this continuum of time, beginnings and endings. The power of thought, the power of our attitude to shape our destiny. It happens so slowly here. in this, what the Betty books called the obstructed universe versus the unobstructed universe, where everything's instantaneous because there's no filter. So this slowing down gives us a chance to observe how universal principles work when they're merged with matter, when they're not in just a pure form without any resistance, but how when they are merged in matter, how they manifest. And we're here to bring the light to the darkness as it presents itself to us, whatever that is.
It's incredible, isn't it? Just that sort of truth coming through as well. It's refreshing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. A lot of this is very exhilarating to read, very uplifting, sort of mind-blowing at times, and leaves you with a sense of excitement.
So the books carry the team words throughout the trilogy. Well, it's 4 books now. And so just to re-emphasize about the importance of the team, let's just go through that as well, just briefly. What does the team mean to you?
Well, my team is a group of beings who I have worked with for eons of time and will continue to work with, each with a unique talent or specialty, although those are overlap and exchanged as needed. They know me at a level that nobody can know me on the earth. I'm the boots on the ground right now. Some of them are in the lookout tower, and then we will exchange positions. And we filter back and forth to one another our impressions and our information. Teammates are around me as well. Some teammates I will only meet briefly in my life to activate a spiritual DNA in one another, and others I will walk side by side with throughout my entire life. These teams overlap with other groups and creating what is called leagues. And so it goes out into infinity. And yes, teams are on all kinds of different levels of consciousness. As a representative of my team, as one of the representatives of my team, it's as if I'm coming to a conference and I'm taking back the information to them that I've gathered to report to them. And my evolution affects theirs, and their evolution affects mine.
Now, isn't that interesting? Because with all these channelers that I've met, the beings coming through say, you always look up to us. Do you understand that we look up to you? That
Yes.
that your progression is our progression?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't matter if you're in the body or out of the body. The work is the same. We need each other. You need me right now. I need you right now. Does it matter you're in that chair and I'm in this chair? So we are truly, if we can just fathom, get away from this idea that here I am in this body, a soul stuck in this body, all alone as an individual pushing through this life, which is how so many people live their lives. And if we can just really connect with the fact that this body is inside my soul is vast. I flow through my body, I use this body, different aspects of me can come into this body when needed. I can be a grandma, I can be a teacher, I can be different things at different times because I am vast and I am connected with this vastness, just like everybody else. But when people switch that awareness around and we just contract when you go into that other mode of thinking.
That's so well put. Thank you. Okay. So, when we do go through hard times and times that are really difficult for us, we have to remind ourselves that we are sharing that experience with the team who will never have that earthly experience. So we may think, oh, it's me, but actually it's Oh, the team, great.
It's us.
They're getting it as well. They're getting this experience. So it's not for me to have this for no reason. It's because it's serving everything else.
In book 1, it's called Reciprocal Influences. There's a whole chapter on reciprocal influences. Would you like me to read a little of that?
Oh, why not? Yes.
Okay. Okay, so in book 1, Reciprocal Influences, it says, we have spoken a great deal about opening your mind, eyes, hearts to become receptive to your team's input. But I want you to know you are also bringing something very beautiful to the process. You are not only calling out for upliftment, not only reaching out with yearning, not only seeking to become more useful and enlightened, you are making an offering. We are not only assisting you, you are assisting us. We are all partners in this plan, working from different locations but with one vision. Our influence upon one another is reciprocal. So, if you have a team with your company and one goes out to speak at a conference and another goes here and another goes there, it's just like different members of the teams going to different dimensions of the universe.
What did Teddy say about the law of attraction, or attracting into your life your passion, or living your passion but attracting in the things that you want to experience?
Well, she said, of course, our thought is everything. She did say that the current use of, in many people's lives, of this law of attraction is just touching the surface, and that often it's used for very frivolous things. She kind of made an appeal to, only have one intention. Bring the light. One intention. Instead of, I want to meet this person and he's got to have these characteristics, and I want this card, it needs to have these characteristics. I know that's a whole technique that people go into, but she said if you simply are here to bring the light, you will attract the light, you will attract the people, you will attract everything you need. And it is certainly the law of attraction, but not confined to specifics.
Okay, not confined to specifics. So okay, let's go with the partner thing. I want to attract someone in my life. What does bring the light mean in any of that respect as well?
If you're here to if you're here to add to the evolution of all things, including yourself, sharing the light, bringing in the light from the vastness of the universe, letting it flow through you and sharing the light, all things will fall into place, including the people you are to meet, the partners you are to have, the lifestyle you are to have. It will all be part of the light.
Oh, so does it mean coming from a space in what you do that's of service to others? Or to yourself?
Yes, but it's also service to yourself, because when you're here to manifest, when you're here to be a vessel of light, then you're opening yourself to the source of light. And so how else can anything that you give to others not be given to yourself? It's not this sacrificial martyrdom mentality at all. It's if you are immersed in a pool of water, then everything you experience is going to be in that pool of water. And so whether it's the fish and the plants and the people there and everything. So if you are immersed in a love for the light, everything you experience will be part of that.
God, that's so interesting the way you put that. So let me just get this round my head then, because I've heard a lot of different takes on this. So, and it's kind of saying the same thing there. So, go with your passion.
Yes.
Yeah, at least follow that. Have no expectations on the outcome of what you're after.
Yes, she says to release this dependency that we have on everything looking a certain way or turning out a certain way. To release, because then we close off the possibilities. Open yourself to every strand of possibility that can possibly occur, that is connected to this love of the light
So it's kind of like saying again, bring both aspects of this. What we're saying here is bring the human side, and don't forget your consciousness having a human experience as well. So bridge that
That's
connection.
always a real good way to look at it, that that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, of course. In the Bible it says, seek first the kingdom of God and all else will be added to you. This is the same kind of concept. We don't have to... she points out that people are limiting themselves, actually, by reducing the law of attraction to some of the things they reduce it to. That it can be so much more, can be so much more open. There can be so many more strands of possibility than bringing it into, it's got to look like this, it's got to turn out like this, he's got to be like this. You see, when you do that, you close some doors. Now there's a chapter in book 4 called Holy Creative Power. And I think it is so incredible because she uses the example like this. Do you doubt that you have the ability right now to stand up and break that lamp and tear up that rug and start smashing your cameras? You know you have that ability. And most of us can agree and have no trouble saying, oh yeah, I'm capable. Right now, you have zillions of strands of possibility radiating out. You can get up and walk out. You can get up and break something. You can get up and go get something to eat. I mean, you can't even list all the things that you in this one tiny moment could possibly do or be or think in this moment. Imagine not even going about your entire life. And most of us can say, yes, oh yeah, I could do a zillion things right now. And oh yeah, I could destroy this entire room with my bare hands if I chose to. And we're so able to say that, but then we're not as comfortable as saying, well yeah, I can choose a zillion things right now, and I can choose these beautiful thoughts. I can break things, but I can create. My power to create beauty and excellent things in the world and for myself is certainly as great as my power to destroy. But people can own their ability to destroy far more easily than they can own their ability to create beauty. So she points out, if we can believe in our ability to create with our thoughts and our intentions beauty and light the way we do believe in ourselves to do damage, that everything could be turned around on this planet.
And create the reality that you want to see
and
as well.
Create the reality, the highest reality of the moment. There's a chapter called The Choice of the Moment. In every moment there's a highest choice available. Every moment of our existence we have created with our thoughts this smorgasbord of possibilities, and there is always the highest one. And that's what we're to reach for. And sometimes if we're depressed or life is very difficult and painful, that may be just lying on the floor, flat on our back, looking up into the darkness, tears streaming down our face, but just saying, I know there is a purpose. I know there is a way. I believe in that light. That pinpoint of light is still there. And that may be the highest choice of that moment, but there always is one. So it's really exciting to just reach for it, That's what we're asked to do.
And with the books as well, I think it was book 4 where it starts talking about the concepts of, well, I suppose time, and how the future and past are happening simultaneously in a sense, which I've heard many times, but it was talking about how you could change the past, or the past is the future and the future is the past. If I've got it wrong, then...
It is a big, big subject, and I feel like many workshops would need to be dedicated to it to really describe it. But I will read a little bit that might...
Sure, and then while you're finding that as well, I mean, I hope I've not said it wrong there, because how can the future be the past? But it was almost like we could go back to the past and it would affect the future.
Yeah. The chapter is called The Present Past. And it says in the beginning here, It's easy for the human mind to grasp how the future is affected by present decisions. Okay, that's easy. I do something now, it's affecting what's going to happen in the future. But for most people, it defies logic when we say the past is also being constantly affected by the present. This is, however, the truth and a core principle of this material. To be very clear, what you call the past is continuously being rewritten by the present, not once, but instant by instant. There is actually no past in existence as you remember it to be, because the wisdom you have gained today has reached back through the portals of time and literally transformed past events, rendering them equal in quality to your present state of understanding. One more sentence. In other words, the vibration of a past event is raised, causing the original event to transmute into an event equivalent to your new perspective. Now it goes on to give some diagrams and some in-depth explanation. But in essence, in a simpler way, just to say how I visualize this, is if in this moment we have raised, perhaps we're two friends who have had an argument and we're having a meeting and we come to some kind of elevation of understanding and we forgive one another. And we really, from a deep place, understand and forgive one another. The event that occurred that caused us to be angry in the first place, it's like a stone drops into a pond and the ripples go not in one direction, not just in the future where we're going to have a future relationship that is now, amiable, but the ripples go everywhere. And so they go into the past too. And so that event, which was always an illusion, was it not? And it was always a product of a thought process. And it was always because we are in this continuum of time, in this dimension, and time, we've told over and over again, does not exist in other dimensions. So that is raised. So if it were here, and it simply is raised to where we are now. And so the event dissolves. The angry event dissolves. The energy never dies. It is transmuted. So the energy goes up, meets us where we are today. And another event happens between us where we were never angry in the first place. It's washed away in the story of time.
Would you remember the event having happened still the same way?
Well, we do remember it, okay? We had this argument. We remember it, but it feels different to us now, doesn't it? We don't see it from this. Think of how you have had events that you don't see the same way. You look back 10 years, oh my gosh, did I really react that way? Why did I think that? Why did I do that? Don't we all have things like that in our life? We don't remember it the same way because the event has been transformed in our own self. If we could see it, if we could see history, we have all these historical events we read in the books, all right? But they really don't exist anymore. Those events do not exist anymore in history, exactly the way they occurred. They exist in the way collective consciousness has evolved to perceive them. It's a big, big subject, but since everything is in evolution and nothing can stay the same, not even for an instant. I mean, right now, the leaves on the trees are changing as we speak. So if everything is in evolution, then all those events, the vibrations of those events are transmuting.
That's almost like saying to me that maybe there's different parallel universes out there, where as well as healing it in this reality, but we also doubly heal it in other realities. It's almost like you could go back, can't you, and you could heal something like that. You could almost try to send a message to yourself, don't do this,
Yes.
or change this, and you're able to heal that other side of you.
Yes.
That's having the experience in another parallel universe.
It's actually recommended that we do that in the books. That very same thing is recommended. We can send messages to our past and our future selves, and we can send messages to ourselves and other strands of possibility. Because when you choose something, you unchoose other things, but those other things, an aspect of you may go on and live out those other realities.
Because if we loved ourselves that much, we would care about the other parts of us in other realities.
They're aspects of our being.
And maybe in those other realities, the reality is not so different to this. Maybe by sending a message, we could experience life very differently. But in this reality, we are still in charge of creating our reality.
Yes.
How would one send a message to their past or future selves?
Well, when we speak from the very highest point that we can reach at this particular time, it would be a matter of, through meditation or through elevated vibration, whatever works for the person, reminding your past self that they are part of a team, that they are deeply loved, that what I am experiencing there is a projection of my thoughts, that I'm moving through certain illusions. There's a chapter called Illusions, Your Best Friends, because they are things we are meant to experience, see as an illusion, and graduate from. So, and that to simply remember that who you are. Remember who you are. Remember you are a part of this team. Remember why you came. And there will be a time, where I am now, where those experiences will be transmuted through a new perspective that you will eventually have.
So it could be a case that when we feel that our lives are falling to pieces in this moment, maybe it's some future event that's rippling back that wants you to go in the direction that's so powerful, what this future event is, that it's already happening in this new understanding that we've got, and it's kind of rippling back, and it's affecting the past now for it to happen even quicker, maybe, or for it to definitely to manifest.
Right.
It sounds a bit like what when I say it like that, yeah?
Now, I like the way you're describing that.
Call it the ripple effect.
Yeah, because when you drop that stone in, it goes out everywhere. And of course, it's bouncing back and forth where each aspect of ourselves is affecting one another. Each teammate is affecting one another, and it's described so specifically in the book, but it says, we think of everything as this way, but what if you turned it this way? And then you have the simultaneousness of it, you see. Even we can see that. Oh, instead of stretching out time this way, now the events are together.
And in all this depth of information, and there's a lot more than what we're discussing here, right? And I wish I could discuss it all.
Yeah.
Maybe we will do in future interviews, right? Or discuss more of it. It's all about keeping it grounded as well, because we're here having this experience, aren't we? And I don't want to take away anything from what we've discussed. I'm just saying, does Mother talk about that it's important to keep it in the now as well?
There's a chapter called The Eternal Now. All the power is in the now. All your power is in the now. We don't have any other place to be. And believe it or not, I said this to my 5- and 7-year-old granddaughters. I said, you know what? They've grasped the idea that we don't have tomorrow, because when tomorrow comes, it's today. And they love that. They're playing with that word. But I said, you know, all you have is right now, and now, and now, and now. And they got it, you know, their eyes were this big. I said, because that doesn't exist. It's already gone. So anyway, all our power is in the now. Just knowing the power that you have in the now, and knowing, you can know intellectually, yes, it's affecting my past, it's affecting my future, because there really is none. It's like taking a ball of clay and wadding it all up together, and there it is. That's the now. It's got the past in it. It's got the future in it. If we can stop separating the three, past, present, future, are really in the now. They're all one big ball of existence.
And the whole theme of the books, I mean, it doesn't really touch on the subjects of ufology or anything like that.
No.
No. Why do you think Mother kept it? Because she had an interest in
Yeah,
that.
yeah, she was.
So why do you think Mother kept that out of here? Is that not really going to help us progress spiritually? Or
No, I think that they speak so much about the fact that we exist on many dimensions, that we have teammates all over the place, that we don't just come back to the earth, that we go to many other locations. I think it's just a given.
right, yeah.
It's just a given. In fact, why separate it? Why is it so strange? It's not that strange at all.
I've got a lot of love for those subjects, but no more than these, though. That in the
Yeah.
sense of, well, you know, it's great to know that there may be life out there, but hang on, I'm struggling with my own time here right now. I don't need to be having another excuse to be somewhere else. What about just sorting my own stuff out? I mean, yes, it makes me happy looking at those subjects, but
It's interesting, but it doesn't change your task or your
No.
purpose or what you're really here for. And I think it's implied in a few spots that all this is going on, but it doesn't really matter. What it all helps us, what this expansion is for, is not just for curiosity and amazement, but to realize we really are a part of it. We all are one with it. We really are one. We really are like one big soul separated into aspects and fragments, really. I mean, I'm part of you, you're part of me. There's no way to separate us. And if we can take hold of that unification idea, and that's what brings all this energy and power into our practical daily life. She says we are here to merge the two. We're not here to escape. She says over and over, I'm not describing the other side to make you wish you could go there or to make you think that it's better than here. It's simply different. And this is such a valuable experience, and it's so brief. It's so brief, but it's a big chance. We have a big chance here to make an impact.
And when some of us are going through such painful lives because, you know, we're stuck in our mental thought, or, you know, never wanted to look at these subjects because maybe we're not meant to, but we're so stuck in our own bollocks, yeah? That head noise and that pain, we don't want to be here. We've got the most beautiful things around us, like our family and everything else. We don't want it. All we wanted to do is escape.
Yeah.
And you just said it there, this is so short. I mean, but that soul that's going through that can't be, only that soul can help themselves, that person can.
Well, they say we have to meet them halfway. They can't do it for us. But they are there constantly trying to impress upon us the love, the beauty, the purpose, and the unification. When we, you know, close off like a turtle pulling everything inside, they have to wait. But we are not ever abandoned and left.
Even us in this physical planet, if we know someone that's going through that, maybe we should try to meet them halfway.
Yes, and sometimes we have to persevere. We have to go what feels like more than halfway, but really it's just remaining present, present, present for that person. Well, we do it in our physical lives. I mean, somebody says, no, go away. We can only go so far, and then we have to back off a little, but we wait, and we return, and we wait, and we return. And they do too.
And it's, you know, I guess I get scared sometimes. I'm not scared, but it's like, well, I can help them, but then I'm going to have to spill my truth to them. And then all they're going to say to me is, well, that's not my truth, Kevin, and I don't believe in any of that. We die, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Lights go off.
Mm-hmm. You know, we're not here to convince or to convert anybody to anything. There's more done through vibration, she says, than anything.
Which would be, in that case, kind of scenario, which would be just coming from your truth to them?
Yeah, and meet them where they are. Meet people where they are. We don't have to, you know, overwhelm them with information. More, just overwhelm them with vibration, you know, of love, of acceptance, of kindness. Sometimes words get in the way and even can do more harm.
That is true, that is true. Now, I know you're connected to your mother. You offer readings as well?
I do. After this happened, I had this experience. I'd had many as a child, like I told you, and closed it off. But I'd never done what you would call a reading. But I started having these doing spontaneous readings of people out in public places. I wouldn't go up to them like the Long Island medium. I would just know things.
Larry.
And sometimes they were verified in the strangest of ways, you know. I was having my hair done and knew all this information about this woman and her child. And then when they walked out, the man doing my hair told me everything about this adopted child and how she, and it was all exactly what had come to me. So anyway, all these spontaneous readings began to happen. And then I would do them privately for friends of friends or family. They'd kind of word of mouth. And I decided to do them publicly because I decided to start donating a portion of the payments to an organization that works with girls who've been sexually trafficked, because that was a subject very dear to my mother's heart. She worked with sexually abused teenage girls as a shelter mother in a runaway shelter type thing, and then she opened her home for 3 years as a shelter mother to these girls. So I thought, you know, I can do this, I can be of service spiritually, and I can help this organization. So I started to do it publicly.
That's beautiful. Because I think when I last saw we had a Skype interview. I don't think that was something you were doing. So
yeah.
Your website is?
theteambooks.com.
Okay, well that's been coming up on the screen throughout this interview as well.
The Team Books.
Now I know Mum's here, and
yeah, we just had the smell of flowers.
Yeah, right. I know Mum's here. So what do you think her message would be in this moment right now?
She would say the greatest power is love, and the second greatest power is joy. She was a very joyful, playful, almost silly, humorous person. And that's why I have this particular picture here, and I always love to bring it out. Because she said, don't take life so seriously. We're only passing through. And bring joy to others with your essence, with your presence. You may know all these facts and words, may come through in this way, but really and truly, if you didn't know any of it, if you didn't have any written word conscious awareness of these principles, you could still express them by remembering you're just passing through. Don't take it all so seriously, and strive to love one another.
We all have the same amount of time each day, 24 hours, 365 days a year. And during every second of that time, we're always contributing to something. In other words, we are always an instrument of something. If we are not an instrument of peace, we have to ask ourselves, of what are we an instrument? Unless we demand to know, we may live our lives as silent partners to a system that insulates us from the consequences of our excesses. And even more importantly, what will we choose to be in our future?
If I could leave people with a few essentials that will serve them in good stead day by day, it would be to remember you wanted to come here. You asked to be in the trenches because the friction that is provided by the earth provides a tremendous acceleration of growth. There are many who would be so grateful to have the opportunities in front of you that lie in front of you for their own acceleration, exhilaration. You are the clay, you are the hands in the clay. You are the hands in the clay. You are sculptors. And you asked to be here. And secondly, you are not cut off from your team, from your source. And the way to the team is through each other. Don't let your desire to feel and know your team blind you to the presence of those around you. There are teammates in your life beside you. Remember their value. Try to dance through this life. It is so short. You are like a butterfly touching upon flowers and moving along, taking the nectar elsewhere. Touch down, give love, leave every place better than how you found it. Enter with the intention to bring love, leave the love behind and move on. You are loved, you are needed. It's all hands on deck. All hands on deck at this time in history. Rise above your petty concerns. Keep your eyes up. We are there. We are here. And so are you. Do you have a question?
Yes, Teddy. First of all, thank you so much for coming through. And I really appreciate you being here right now. Would there be any more books to come out? Would there be any more teen books to come out?
There will not be more books of this sequence. There will be a guidebook, a study book, created from the material that's already been given when the time is right.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. And my next question is, when Frances had the feeling that Frances had part of her consciousness had left, and potentially, Teddy, some of yours had come into Frances, Is that the same as some people and researchers have talked about what's called a walk-in?
All these words are interrelated. Aspects, walk-ins. Francis and I are one. Francis is an aspect of my soul. I am an aspect of Francis's soul. So in that sense, when we came to Earth, our soul came in as mother and daughter. We are not two unique, separate beings.
Wow, that's interesting. How many other people, is that common on this planet Earth for that to be the case?
It's far more common than you think. It's in the books. There's 2 chapters devoted to the information.
Right.
The aspects of your soul, there's one associated with your Kevin form, and there are other aspects of your identity, your soul, in other places on this planet.
So those aspects of my soul, some could have already crossed back over and some will still be here.
And some are here.
Yes, still
For you, there's one other of you in Asia. Another aspect of your being in Asia.
Is that my past ex-Malaysian girlfriend?
No, but she is the reason you felt a connection to Malaysia.
Oh God, don't tell me it's her mother.
You haven't met the other aspect of yourself that's in Asia.
Will I meet that other aspect?
Probably not. It's rarely necessary. The reason different aspects come into the earth at different locations is because there's different things to do in those places. Sometimes you meet yourself along the way, and it's more like there's a string around the finger of memory to remind you. You may meet yourself to remind yourself of something, but usually there's no point or purpose. It would defeat the purpose. It would defeat the purpose of different aspects being in different places to unite as one.
Do those other aspects affect us in the present moment when they're suffering, or?
Very much so. The effect is more an exchange of energy and vibration and awareness, and you may wake up with an incredible idea one day, which has actually been placed there by another aspect of your own being.
Oh, right. On purpose, or actually because that other aspect is also looking for the same solution, or is going through the same issues?
Yes, to all of that. Scientists that are all over the world sometimes discover pieces of information that all work together. It suddenly and it all emerges and it blends into one. And very often these scientists are different aspects of the same person.
What about different aspects coming from parallel universes?
Of course, that is always occurring. But it's of interest to people to realize that they are present in more places than one on this earth, very often. And this explains some of your yearning. Sometimes people have a yearning for a certain culture, a certain location, or feel, I should be in this place doing this kind of work, but I can't get there because I have these responsibilities here. Fulfill the responsibilities where you are, because another aspect of you is doing what you're imagining elsewhere.
Then how do we discern between that when we get a yearning to go somewhere, for example, or just the example that you mentioned, how do we discern that that's actually another aspect of us calling us and we don't have to answer that call all the time?
The opportunity will present itself if you are to answer that call, or the drive to do so will be so overpowering that you won't resist it.
So the drive could actually fall off after a little while, even a day, a couple of hours, months.
Yes, yes.
Right. So when we say to ourselves, oh God, there's so many things I could have done I never saw through,
Yes.
Sometimes they're just drives from different aspects, parallel universes. Let's stay centered right now and say it's within this lifetime as well.
Precisely, precisely. We don't have to be all things to all people, all places at all times.
No.
Other parts of our being are doing those things, and other teammates are doing those things. And we may often feel the work of a teammate. We may feel their work and feel drawn to go do something, and realize later, no, it was not for us.
But you could also imply this into a romantic feelings for someone. You could have deep, deep romantic love for someone, not be able to explain it, and yet when you followed it through, it's for both parties, it never went anywhere. But maybe that's because in another place, or your other aspect of yourself is falling in love with that person's other aspect somewhere else.
You're very wise. You're very wise. There's a chapter called Where Relationships Abide. And it's made very clear that all relationships that we see physically manifesting, whether they're romantic, friendship, business, or otherwise, are occurring because the souls of those that are associated with those bodies are in connection. And so your romantic relationships, you're holding hands, looking into the eyes of that person, but it could not occur if the souls were not connected. The soul connection is where everything begins, and the reason anything manifests.
But if that was to fizzle out, even a business connection you said there, if that was to fizzle out after a time, even
Yes,
a
yes.
year, then that's not been, it would continue if it was meant to be. You would be then connecting with a true part of that. It's hard to put in words. It would be a true connection in your reality with that person, but if it fizzles out, that's my point, I suppose.
If it fizzles out, then the earth conditions for its continuation just were not conducive to it continuing. It doesn't mean that the soul connection is gone, because the soul connection was never dependent on those bodies in the first place.
Oh, you see, this way it gets confusing. So we was just saying, my understanding of what you were saying there was, there's many multi-layers to this, right? Was that, if you're, go back to the romantic feelings, you had a romantic feelings with someone and it fizzled out, that's because maybe another aspect of your soul is having a connection with that other person's aspect somewhere else. But you're also saying as well that there's also another element to this as well, that, as you've mentioned there.
Well, there's so many influences.
Right.
But the primary influence is always at the soul level. Your souls may be one in love, but the earth conditions are not conducive to your physical connection continuing. It doesn't mean the love or the soul connection dies. It just chooses not to manifest in bodies.
Which is another way of what you said, and another way of looking at why these things happen as well. There are many ways of why things are the way they are.
Many. There are so many layers of complexities, and it's good to know about them, but it isn't good to obsess about them or fear them or try too hard to control them, because that can only take you down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
Yes. Remain present and true to your path, to your present, because it's affecting everything else anyway. You don't have to go make a special effort to affect or change or control anything.
But then you could say the same about your books and anyone else's teachings that have come through someone else and been channeled, or whatever the truth of how they bring that through might be, in a different way the books are brought out. But it's the obsession with one person's truth, and you're almost saying there, well, read the books but walk away.
Words are limitations. Anytime you take any pure universal truth and you begin to speak it, write it, draw it, contain it in any way, shape, or form, it is somehow altered according to the limitations of what's available to express it, and then it has to go through another filter of the person's mind that absorbs it. So it's many layers removed from the pure truth. Everything is such.
Right. Now, I don't want to keep you here too long, because obviously this is, Francis hasn't done this all the time like this, but I'm so grateful of you being here. So I just got, there's me in one breath saying, let's keep it simple, but I'm just going to run a few just ideas through you, and then this is just me having an experiment with you. In your material that you brought through, you talk about the multi-dimensional aspect. These are my words, kind of portraying, trying to personify yours. So sorry if I've not got it quite right, but you talk about that we're continuously, maybe shifting realities in a sense. Yeah? So if I'm shifting realities, am I also then connecting, or just Francis connect to a different version of you? Because will you be the same, coming from the same reality as we shift ours?
When a person passes out of the body, they reunite. When a soul passes out of the person's body, they reunite with their team and with their fullness of their own being.
Yes.
With the other aspects of themselves. Therefore, Teddy is contained in the larger soul and the fullness of the soul of Teddy, and in the team. The smallness of Teddy that was known here is contained in the larger. And so there's much more available when you are no longer in the body to meet with, when you meet in different dimensions, or when you meet in a different body, or you have much more to work with in your own being. And so you are able to be many things to many, at many levels, to many souls. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well then, okay, let's turn this around then. When I have spoken to so many different entities channel through people, and I understand that the person's a filter as well, right? No matter what anyone wants to say, they are in a sense, right? These entities do not seem to acknowledge each other. Like Adamus that I channeled through Jeffrey Hoppy, I don't think would be acknowledged through yourself, really. It's almost like you're contained within your own truth space.
This name that you spoke is simply a name that was given to the mind of that person so they could relay an identity to you. Every channeler is speaking to an enlarged entity of beings that may give a name, and they are there to offer universal principles. The name is for the convenience of the channeler and the listener.
That makes a lot of sense. So these enlarged beings, am I speaking to enlarged beings right now?
You're speaking to a full team.
So even though Teddy was called to come through, Crystal Teddy, actually it's much more. So have I spoken to you before on this journey?
The teams overlap into leagues. And there are many leagues that work at this level, that have this particular job to do, if you want to call it that. There are those who never do this. And there are teams overlapping into larger leagues that do this work.
So why would they come through to say that maybe they're not aware or they've never connected with that team?
Because the overlapping is so vast, and nobody is particularly concerned, any more than you are concerned, with who is filming another video, another documentary of this sort, right here in New York City.
No, because it's so much going on. It's the same analogy,
It's
right?
the same work. You know they exist, do you not? Know they exist?
Yes.
And you know that all over the world people are filming all sorts of material films related to this material.
I get it. So, yeah. So let's go to truth.
You
then.
don't need to know the details.
And that's how vast it is, where you're coming from as well. But even more vast, probably in our understanding, or maybe
Yes.
it's just the same. Who knows, right? But then that other team filming the other documentary, they've got a different truth into what the nature of this reality is.
They're simply sharing a piece of the kaleidoscope view.
Even if it's different.
Are you saying different as opposed?
Not opposed, no, but it's another way of looking at it. You know, one may say karma exists, and others' truth may say, no, it doesn't exist like that.
Well, you see, karma can exist like that, or it can exist like that, because if you take it to the vastest possible reaches of infinity, there is no karma. Everything is poised in one point, in perfect equilibrium. But as you move away from that perfect point of equilibrium out into various manifested modes, you have stretched out, slow motion events going on where it appears that there's cause and effect, and people are experiencing karma.
Even the entities that I've spoken to will still come from that space, yeah? One's coming from the edge, one's coming from some other place.
Yes, they're coming from different levels of awareness and different perspectives on the same topic.
Are equal then, from the perspective where they're at.
Well, we have said in the books that everyone is a master because everyone is a master of where they are at.
Right. Right.
You are the master of where Kevin currently is. Nobody can do Kevin more perfectly than Kevin. Nobody is more masterful at being where you are in this unique moment than you. But does that mean there are no levels above you?
No, well, obviously there is.
Or below you?
Obviously there is.
And so the same is true of a certain topic, such as karma. You see, all these topics, all of them, once they are raised to the highest imaginable point, come to perfect unity and equilibrium, where there are no separate souls, there is only one being, where there is no cause and effect because all is still.
Okay. So, is there truths above where you're at?
Oh, infinitely.
Would they seem to be different from my perspective?
From your perspective, they would look very different.
But from your perspective, they may just be more stretched out and just from a different viewpoint. So if I change where my eyes look now, it's like that different viewpoint, isn't it? I've heard you use that analogy before.
Yes, and the analogy in the books that I think is very powerful is the ball of clay. When you take a stretched out piece of clay and you ball it up into one tiny point, everything that was impressed upon that clay, if you carved shapes and words, whatever you put upon it, it's all brought into that one point, and it all exists together. Everything that you're experiencing in the manifested universe is a fragmented version of the reality, which is totally unfragmented.
I actually feel that your daughter has answered a lot of the questions that I gave her earlier, and I wouldn't re-ask them to you in this moment right now, because I think she's done a good job with them. God, where you are out of time, I can't imagine that right now, but guess I'm not supposed to.
How can you tell a child that's learning to add what calculus is?
No, that's right.
And that is not a reflection on your spiritual development or your soul's evolution. It is a reflection on what the human brain and the human form and the physical world provide.
Yes, absolutely, and it's it's a real honor that and I don't say this to be strange, but I never met you in the physical world, but it's an honor to have met you still through this means, because you've come through and helped humanity so much with the material that you've done, and so has your daughter for allowing the collaboration. So all I can do is thank you as well for spreading your truth.
And we thank you. You are a facilitator. And you're doing what you're doing because of, you belong to a team of facilitators on this earth and beyond. Many facilitators on this earth are providing a portal for teams to speak through.
Right.
It's reciprocal.
Yeah.
It's reciprocal. It's an approach to truth. Channeling is one approach to truth.
I like that.
And it's yours.
Yes, it is.
It is your approach to truth. And be careful not to be exclusive. Be inclusive. There are those who channel Jesus. There are those who channel Muhammad. There are those who channel Mother Mary. Permit the channeling of what you would typically call religious as well, because to be exclusive immediately
I see what you mean.
Put you in the category of those who say there's only one way.
Well, I would be happy with people who channel Jesus to be part of it, but I think what you're saying there, you're saying more than that, aren't you? You're saying if someone is Christian, they should be allowed to explore this. I'd never shut the door on a Christian, do you know what I mean? And I wouldn't say that they're wrong neither, that's their truth. But I think you're saying, just to remind me, to come from that space, or
you have within you a resistance to organized religion that is understandable. We know what it is. We understand it. We know where it comes from. Don't let it cause you to be dogmatic about anything either.
Okay.
It's a caution for you to be careful of anger, to be careful of judgment, to be careful of resistance.
Right. Okay.
If you want truly open doors, be open. Be open.
Understood. Okay. Well, okay. I'm just going to thank you so much for coming through and being equal with us. Thank you.
It's a blessing and a pleasure. It's a reciprocal relationship. Those on the other side who are reaching out to the world with this message of love, these words, all hands on deck, at this time in history, we need you as you need us, and we are one. Remember, you are not in your body, that your body is inside of the soul. Liberate yourself from the narrowness of this perspective. Liberate yourself from the idea that you're an individual. Liberate from yourself from the idea that you have to do it all alone. Use this huge wave of impetus that's available to you. Connect with the vibrational spheres that we've talked about. Huge spheres of creativity, of love, of wisdom. These are balls of vibration that float through the universe. They contain the thoughts and the energies of people throughout time. Anyone who has ever healed from a emotional wound has deposited in these vibrational spheres the healing and the love and the forgiveness. And so when you join with these spheres, you draw in and you use and you channel through your own being enormous waves, not just your own small spark or impetus. Expand yourself beyond this limited view of yourself and be humble. Don't let it make you lofty and proud. Be humble. Lose your individuality. Lose your clinging to your identity. Lose your name. Lose your picture, your story you've made up about yourself. Lose it. Set it free. And don't take it all too seriously.